A warm welcome to all the panelists, management, faculty and the students. Thank you for taking your time out to attend the Bespoke show. Bespoke is defined as something that is custom made. The Bespoke show is an initiative conceptualized to live up to this dictionary definition. It is neither another Me Too inspirational talk, nor it is a platform to share longer than life personal stories. TPS is a forum for candid discussion on topics of interest, covering conventional and non-conventional sectors, mainstream and offbeat careers, arts and literature, media and entertainment, and even the international affairs.
Before we begin, may I request Dr. Madhavendra Chatterjee, Director PGDM, to deliver the welcome note.
So it's the first time in ABBS that we are doing this, and I must take this opportunity to welcome all our dignitaries who have come here and sparing their time. So Group Captain TPS Gill, we welcome you, sir. Group Captain Acharya, we welcome you, sir. Mr. Gaurav Agarwal, thank you so much. Ms. Sonal Sood, and of course Sid and Acharya, who have conceptualized the whole thing. It's indeed innovative on their part that they have started doing this with the academic institutions and the corporate, finding out the things that we actually need and providing the platform to discuss this, as they said, as candidly as possible. And aviation is going to be the next big thing as we believe. As we watch this business world, we realize that aviation is going to be one of the big industries, and there are many challenges that aviation industry will face down the line, along with the concept of carbon footprint and how to reduce it. And yet we need to travel, business has to happen, supply chains are going to become longer. So this is going to be a wonderful experience for us, I'm sure, when these concepts will be discussed, because our students are going to look at the management and operation sides of this aviation industry. Some of them may go into technical later on in life, but presently they're all doing their graduation. So they are going to be actually initiated into the management and operations angles of this aviation. So they will probably have more questions on those areas. And it would be interesting for them to know what is the future they can look forward to. And as we say, choti shi aasa, upar jana hi apne ko udne ki aasha. So aviation is all about moving ahead, going up. But how do we do it? Because this is an industry we haven't really spoken much about, and it has never been a part of management education as it is today. So the importance is realized because today universities, institutions, all are talking about the management aspect, not the technical aspect so much. So I'm sure both the captains will give us the helicopter view, as they said, of all the things that happen in aviation, and I'm sure they will have this wonderful objective way of letting us know where operations and how management are going to make the aviation industry much better. And technology, as one of Mr. Gaurav Agarwal was telling us, is going to run this show. So is it the technical area also that you all can enter, especially in the analytics area, because data is going to drive the next big thing. And you know how today you're buying tickets online, which we couldn't think of. We had to go to an agent, the agent would book the ticket, or you went to the airline's office and booked it. Today we have moved to that, but it is going to be further on. As I was reading, probably it will get sold in Amazon, the tickets. We can't see it happening now, but it might. So the other side, that is the technical side, which all of you will probably get into, which is the analytics angle of it, which any job will require. So I'm sure this is going to be a very, very exciting discussion. And please feel free to ask all your questions, because this is all about candid discussion, being transparent about your fears, your apprehensions, your joyous moments that you're looking for in the future. So thank you all for being here, and we look forward to an exciting and informative discussion. Thank you very much.
diverse perspectives from seasoned leaders about careers and growth opportunity in the Indian aviation sector.
May I now request Group Captain retired TPS Gill, founder of CEFAT, to take a seat on the dais. Group Captain Gill is an A320 instructor who has been with Indigo Airlines in India. He has 46 years of flying experience, including 31 years as a fighter pilot in the Indian Air Force. For the last 10 years, he has been conducting ground training of pilots for the issue of CPL, ATPL, RTR licenses, as well as for the selection process of candidate program and airline jobs. And also we have Group Captain Acharya sir to come to the dais, please. After graduation from National Defence Academy and Air Force Academy, he joined the fighter stream of the Indian Air Force. He has more than 15,000 flying hours to his credit on various types of craft like Boeing 737, MiG-21, Hunter Canberra and various training aircraft. After completing 24 years in the Indian Air Force, he joined civil aviation and served in Jet Airways, Sahara and SpiceJet. He is presently doing a voluntary work at an ex-serviceman's health clinic. May I request Dr. H.R. Venkatesha sir, Director Management Studies, to welcome Group Captain Gill and Group Captain R. Chidambaram with the flower pots.
Next, we have with us Mr. Gaurav Agarwal. Sir, please take a seat on the dais. Mr. Gaurav Agarwal is a senior aviation professional with 25 years of aviation experience in Asia, Japan, China, Philippines, Pacific Islands of Guam and Cyprus, in Africa, South Africa and Swaziland, and closer home in the subcontinent as Maldives and India. His prior work assignments include a large US-based legacy career Northwest Airlines, a regional boutique airline based in the Philippines Sea Air, India's first low-cost airline company, Air Decade, and the first greenfield airport built in India, Bangalore International. He has also worked with South African Airways as head of international network planning and fleet development. He has also worked in a senior role as a strategy advisor at China's HNA Group. Mr. Agarwal is an MBA from Asian Institute of Management, Philippines, and holds a diploma in transport management from National University of Singapore. He is an alumnus of Singapore Aviation Academy. Next we have with us Ms. Sonal Sood from GoAir. Madam, please take a seat on the dais. Ms. Sonal Sood is the former cabin manager of Jet Airways. She is licensed by Competent Authority of India, DGCA, to fly different fleets B737, A330, ATR 72. Ms. Sood has rich experience of more than 13 years in aviation customer service management. Now I request Dr. Madhumita Chatterjee to welcome Mr. Agarwal and Ms. Sonal Sood with a flower pot.
Ms. Asha Sambar and Mr. Sid Malinga jointly host the bespoke show. May I request Asha and Sid to take a seat on the dais, please.
America premise, and European MNC. She is currently an independent director on the board of Toyota Financial Services and an advisory council member of EFI. She has also worked with brands like Kirloskar, Johnson's, etc.
Mr. Sid Balika is a published author in the Times of India, Assam Tribune and several management periodicals. He has been quoted in the Deccan Herald for his leadership profile development. His books Is Officially Stupid and Behar Ki Beti have been widely appreciated for bringing out a strong social message in the people. He has spent more than a decade in education sector and has worked on skill development projects, language training program and many more. May I now request the host to lead the show and give us the insights how we can fly high in the Indian skies. May I request Ms. Kala Sridhar, Assistant Director, Corporate Initiatives, and Ms. Nidhi Mohan, Manager, Corporate Relations, to welcome Mr. Sid Balika and Ms. Asha Sampath with the flower pot.
So, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for taking out time on a Saturday afternoon. So first of all, let me define bespoke. So when we say the bespoke show, bespoke means candid, honest, direct. So the discussion will be very elaborate, clear, and direct. At the end, you will be given an opportunity to raise questions, which again should be very candid. So whatever questions, however silly it may sound or however dumb it may sound, please feel free to ask questions directed to the right people, and the panel will be happy to answer your queries. So before we start, there is an old adage or old proverb that sky is the limit for some of us, ordinary people who live on our ordinary models. Sky is the limit for most of us, but for people in aviation, sky is the moon. Right? Are ताली बजाओ। Thank you. So keep the claps going. Okay. So before we get into details of aviation sector and Naukri on Cloud 9, and before we get on to Gagan and stuff, let me start with a very important topic, since we have a lot of undergraduate students here, and you people might be reading newspaper, getting a lot of maybe negative information more than positive information in the media, because negative information sells faster and travels faster. Right? So we will discuss the aviation paradox in India first. Right? On one hand, there are a lot of reports from IATA and other players, other bodies, and a lot of internet literature available saying that India is going to be one of the leading aviation markets by 2023, 2024. Many different years are quoted in these reports. Okay, and it's going to be the third biggest and the second biggest market. That is on one end. And on the other end, we read a lot of news about airlines shutting down and no job, people getting laid off and people not getting salary. So obviously you might be confused in your minds, what is happening, which report do I believe? Right? So with this, I would pose this question to Gaurav from the commercial angle. So Gaurav, what do you have to say about this aviation paradox in India, first of all?
Okay, do I need the mic or?
I think, yeah.
Okay, first of all, thank you for having me here. You know, I see this question as the rest of the world, you know, does things this way, and India, we do it this way. So we had cars, you know, fantastic cars coming here first, and roads are only getting built now. And likewise in aviation, we have bought thousands of planes, or at least about 800 planes, and airports are only getting built now. So there is sometimes a mismatch between what is being planned and what is getting delivered on the ground. So, but that shouldn't dishearten you, and that shouldn't make you feel this industry doesn't have any scope. It is prone to shocks. It is a boom bust industry, but certainly not the only industry that has that problem. Today, all the industries that came into being after 91, after we opened up in a big way, we were a socialist country. Many of you were not born. So to set the context, in 91 we kind of opened up our economy and we said that we will let these consumer industries come into being. So there is telecom, and a lot of the telecom companies today are suffering. If you read the news, you will know what's happening. It's one of the industries that took hold around 91. So airline is also one of them. To say that there is, and you've seen some failures in the recent past. You've seen Kingfisher, you've seen Jet Airways, you've seen close shave SpiceJet had in 2014, but they recovered. So there are reasons for that. We can go into more detail when we discuss other questions. I think our policy is not, government policy is not keeping pace with what the industry can do or potentially has, creation of jobs as possible, as potential. So I would still ask you to remain optimistic. We do things in a different way. There's a certain mismatch of what we have already got, and on the ground there's no airports. So there's some mismatch, but eventually I do believe, as an optimist, that the industry will find its way. So at least that's the message I would like to give to you. I know what the shortcomings of my industry are, but for you, as somebody who's just coming into the job stream, there are positives. It's an exciting industry to be. I think we mentioned here before that it's going to be the third largest industry. So you should look at it as an optimist. Maybe
as far as, let's just look at the bust of certain airlines. I would just put it as, if you really do a case study on any of them as management students, you will find that mismanagement of the finances was one of the greatest aspects which came into this. It is not that they predicted growth wrongly, no. They predicted growth well. And growth also picked up. For example, if you look at the progress of Jet Airways, I was in SpiceJet, but like we said, we did that little miss. And all of us, few people left, and I stayed on in SpiceJet when this happened. And we said we could move it forward, maybe with a reduced strength, cut the flag, and get into something better. But that having been said, there are phases where the margins are low. Now, contributions to low margins could be a thing like cost of ATF, etc., which I think all of you are well aware. But if you tell me, would this have an adverse effect on our growth in this industry? I say no. We are the sunshine sector, and there is great potential in this sector. And for people like you who are kind of getting into the system now, I wouldn't paint anything other than a bright picture. There are things which you've got to take in the stride as far as your progress in aviation is concerned. But I guess that's what happens in all industries.
Okay, both the speakers have already laid the foundation. Let me just add to it what I have to say. First of all, in aviation, if you start from 89, there is always a 5-year cycle. That means 89 they started, creating more number of airlines. 73 it went down, 98 it came up again, 2003, thereafter it continued, and 2003 again after 98 for some time it went down. 2003 it again came up, 2008 came up crisis, up to 2013 again it came up, and 2018, and now we are in 20. So it's a cycle which is very much how it has happened. Nothing new about it. But what already bespoke person has already spoken in the beginning, that there are so many predictions that India in 3 years time, actually it was earlier 2020, it should be the third biggest airline industry in the world. And now it is predicted that 2030, it will become the biggest. People who are writing this are not specialists. They are not conjecturing, they are not just guessing or guessing. There is some spade work being done. What is the foundation of this spade work? In India itself, at the moment, the number of people who could be traveling because of the middle class is such a small percentage that they say we need the rate at which it is growing. The way France has predicted 11% or 10% growth rate that we are talking about the travelers. India needs 70,000 more pilots in the next 10 years. To add to it, 1,000 aircraft are waiting to be supplied to various airlines in India. 649 for Indigo, 102 for GoAir, and some 251 for SpiceJet. And Air India, we can leave it to the politicians. How much they want. So, as regards that, with these numbers, I will also tell you from each aeroplane, you need at least 14 pilots, 7 captains and 7 first officers. So what are we talking about? Is the world just guessing or is it a reality? We may be at the ebb of it, maybe a downward cycle, but I already mentioned to you about the 5-year cycle in aviation. So therefore, job opportunities are going to be plenty. Why is France, in terms of other things, if you say about the industry, it's not just pilots. If you remember what the Prime Minister said some time back, he said 5 years, I want 100 more airfields to be ready. Which are these airfields? Lots of them are greenfield and lots of them are the ones which were used in the Second World War by the Indian Air Force, may have been not utilized, recarpeted and may be used. Where are the job opportunities otherwise, let us say in India? Everywhere it's slowing down. Aviation is one place where everybody would like to create jobs because that is how they can stay in power. Because the accusation is there are no jobs. So if I put all this together, what does it mean? It can't be gloom. It has to be. But we can't be sitting on the fence and thinking that, you know, in terms of when it goes up, that's the time we will start getting qualified. One has to be qualified and then wait. So, in my view, there is no depression in this. If everyone is predicting, everyone is calculating and saying something, it is not guesswork. So I think there is a bright future. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I wholeheartedly agree with what the gentlemen have said. Aviation is a very, very tricky industry. It has a lot of downside and upside, of course. But we will be all as ignorant if we just look at the downside of it and we don't look at what the industry has to offer us. I've been proudly been part of this industry for the last 14 years. And I would love to continue in the aviation because the kind of opportunities, the sectors, the opportunities this industry gives you, it's very difficult. I would also like to inform you that the promotion, the growth hierarchy in aviation industry is faster as compared to any other industry. You get recognized for your work on instant basis. You get promoted on instant basis, which gives you a motivation to work even harder. As Sir said, if airline collapses, it's the financial decisions that have gone wrong somewhere, not because they have predicted the growth wrongly. We see the sectors these days are coming up 10 years before or 10 years ago. Nobody even knew we had such small towns or cities existing in India. But now all the airlines are capturing it because people are traveling. It's a clear sign that people are moving They commute from destination A to destination B without wasting time, and they prefer airline because they're the fastest means of traveling. Now we're not just talking about being a pilot or being a crew. There are several other departments which are involved, from getting an aircraft up from the ground to flying. So there's absolutely nothing to feel demotivated. What we read in articles, we read in newspapers, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and everywhere else in public forums, it's on one side of the story. Aviation is booming up, and it's been predicted to boom up even way better than what it is right now. If you can see the progression happening at Bangalore airport itself, clearly specifies new sectors coming up. Airline would require manpower in all other departments too. So please keep up the hopes, and looking forward to seeing you, probably most of you, rather all of you, joining the industry. Thank you very much.
We were talking about this financial and collapses of the airlines. I remember in '98 what did Naresh Goyal say? He said, if you want to be a millionaire, open an airline as a millionaire and you will become a millionaire soon. That is all to do with the management. When you talk of the entities, there are other elements which lead to the collapse, which is apart from financial discipline, the company discipline, and also in terms of let us say, where are you extending your financial gains? Is it putting back into the airline or is it going somewhere else? The case in point is Vijay Mallya. Okay, buying islands, buying yachts, buying different kind of Formula One and all that with the money that you're maybe generating from the airline business or whatever it is. So it is to do with how to run an airline. And when it comes to, like I said, why these collapses take place, I will squarely put it on improper discipline of managing an airline. In terms of whether you have a union, one person gets punished, everybody goes on strike. It doesn't happen. That is what has been happening in Air India. That is what has been happening in Jet Airways. Then you can't continue with the business like that. So it is to do with proper discipline and financial management if you want to survive. Opportunities are enough. That is all I would say. Thank you.
That's a very relevant point about financial discipline and management. Staying on the macro level for the aviation space. On the one hand, from what I have just heard from all of you, I think there are multiple reasons for us to think that the aviation industry is going to have a steady growth going forward. First of all, the burgeoning middle class, and then the urbanization that's happening, and then the millennial community is increasing. So there are good reasons for us to believe that the aviation industry is upbeat. But on the other hand, we also are seeing that a lot of the airlines are under turbulent circumstances. Some are closing down. The demand on the one side is high, but on the other hand, the supply is probably not on par with the demand, and we see a lot of demand for low-cost airlines, no-frills airlines, and the consequence of all that is they're not able to run it profitably. So do you see some kind of consolidation happening going forward in the aviation space, where we see a more balanced demand-supply situation?
See, when we are talking about consolidation, let us talk about, it's a very common, very natural thing regardless of which industry you are in. When the competition builds up, then you got to also be ready to compete. Okay. And there is a saying, when the situation gets tough, the tough get going. Right? So what is toughness in this? I already mentioned discipline, financial discipline. Run the airline regardless of what is happening. For example, I will just say, example of Kingfisher. Let's say, we talk of Kingfisher, constantly there is one argument being raised ATM prices were high. ATM prices were not high only for Kingfisher. They were high for Indigo also. They were high for other airlines also. The question is, did you manage it well? That's the issue. So, in terms of consolidation, what happens? It is the bigger fish eats the smaller fish. So what normally in the business world is called the sharks. So every airline, let us say Indigo at present has been growing. When I joined Indigo 10 years, 11 years back, they had 31 aircraft. Today they have 258 aircraft. 650 aircraft are waiting to be delivered. So therefore, they are going to grow. And they have a business model where they generally, except one of the quarters recently, they have always been in profit. So their strategy, it's a corporate world. Each one is out trying to outmaneuver the other one. So therefore, if you have a strategy, if they are growing at this pace, they will certainly evolve policies where something should collapse so that ready-made pilots, all available, all the ground staff, everybody should just come towards them, because they are getting at the rate of, I will tell you, last year itself they got something more than 30 aircraft. And I already told you that they need 14 pilots per aircraft. So if you, let us say, if I offer you, an example I am giving, they may not be realistic figures. If I offer your pilots, let us say I'll give you 7 months salary as bonus if you come and join me, because they need ready-made pilots. Fine? Very few will not take that fight. Now suddenly inflow into comes into one airline. Other airline can't cope because there's shortage of pilots, aeroplanes are standing on ground, lease is to be paid, everything has to be done. So what is happening? Crumbling starts. So therefore it's natural phenomena that these sorts of things happen in the corporate world. Let us talk of, when we talk of whether it is Boeing or Airbus. In the past, there were Lockheed Martin, GoAir, British Aerospace. What has happened to all that? Today there is only mainly 2 manufacturers. That is the Airbus and Boeing. What has happened to the rest? They collapsed. You can't sustain. And therefore, after that only comes up little bit is Bombardier or Embraer, something like that. So, as far as this goes, this phenomenon is very natural. There will be consolidation, and consolidation then finally is leading up to a much stronger, wherein in some of the countries there are monopoly laws. It may not be allowed so easily. I don't know the laws in India, but certainly it happens more often. So therefore consolidation will take place, airlines will shut down because this competition will continue, bigger fish eats the smaller fish. How it happens, I am just giving you one example. Okay. If you have to grow, you have to have trained pilots. Like today there are about 400 pilots, foreign pilots who are flying here. Because you can't cope the demand like you mentioned. Because to train a pilot, just to be able to start flying with a license, it may take up to 2 years. So in short, which is a shortcut way, I just mentioned. So that's all that I have to say at this moment. And in the low-cost airline, India still is not working as per the concept of low-cost airline. And I will tell you the reason. I was sent to study in Frankfurt as well as in Sweden, Ryanair operations. The operations are totally different. And now I will tell you because we linked it to Jet Air. So the story starts from there. What did I see? It was raining, snowing in Frankfurt. 4 people were doing total turnaround the aircraft going in just 20 minutes after switch off. The cabin crew used to go to the airport to board the passengers. First 60 passengers who checked in were allowed to go first so that they could go and occupy the seat that they wanted. So that there is a group of family of 4 people or 5 people. So they were allowed to go first because they came in first. So with the result, everybody tried to reach the airport early. The people would check in 2 hours early. And with this, so when they went, and also they were operating from airports which were secondary airports, not the main Frankfurt airport. It could be another one nearby 20 kilometers away. For example, in this particular case, like it could be Acharya airport, which is nearby. Other one is far away, and it is not so well utilized in terms of traffic on the thing. So if every cost was low, same thing I saw in Ryanair. So in 20 minutes, an aircraft going with 4 person only, turning the aircraft around was amazing. Here it would be 70 to 20 people milling around the aircraft, and why did it happen? That also I will mention. And because it was an operation where people were running to the aircraft because they were from secondary airport, just walk across the terminal. No coach required, no bus required, no even transportation required for the pilot. They travel in trains and suddenly come and arrive. So that is low cost airline. No, in terms of hotel stay at night. So this is what I saw there. But here when it happened, this is where the Jet Airways comes in. So when Gagan wanted to do that, they realized that tickets were being sold for 1 rupee. Even for 1 rupee ticket was being sold. Okay, first come, first buy. And whosoever bought it early, they were getting very, very cheap tickets. Now this is the boss of the Jet Airways came into play. I don't know what to say. You go to the right kind of people, get the right decision to ban Gagan from doing all this. Okay? They said, sorry, you have to allot seat numbers. Passengers cannot walk across the tarmac. All those things were given because Jet Airways was feeling a threat. So therefore these rules were brought in, and with the result not allowed to function as a low cost airline so that they should not be able to sustain. But this sort of corporate war continues. He succeeded. In the long run, they say if you dig a ditch for others to fall, you also fall into it sometimes. Okay, so finally Jet Airways collapsed. Not only that, I can tell you to what extent it was going on. One day I was on finals at night. Behind me was a Jet Airways aircraft. When I was just, let us say, 7 miles from touchdown, I was taken away to do an orbit and brought the Jet Airways to land so that should function on time and Gagan should be delayed. Okay? And when I asked him the reason, what is the reason? He said, you are a slow aircraft. On finals, everybody is same speed. So therefore, all this was happening. So therefore, what happened behind the scene between Jet Airways and Kingfisher and all that, I wouldn't be privy to it. Maybe we can contact some people who will be more knowledgeable about it. These are games that people play at high places. So I really don't know but I've just given you one story as to what the Jet Airways was doing that time. So very possible they must have done a lot of what you're saying. That's all I can say.
Just to add to that, I don't know how many of you have heard of this book called Flight of Vultures by Joby Joseph. Excellent 3 chapters on Jet Airways and how they mucked it up. Vedanta, how they mucked it up. Read that book. You'll enlighten yourself on this question about Jet Airways.
Sonal, this one is for you. I think when you started off your career about 14-15 years ago, jobs in, let's say, cabin crew or becoming an air hostess, I think it was quite glamorous that time, 15-20 years ago, especially for people from tier 2 towns, tier 3 towns. So is it equally glamorous today? What is your take? Do you see people coming, rushing to you, asking how to become an air hostess? Kya karna chahiye? What is the eligibility? Where can I go for an interview?
When I started my career way back in 2005, I come from a family where I've seen an aviator family basically. A lot of my cousins, my family members are pilots or crew. So I started aspiring becoming a cabin crew from a very, very young age. And what attracted me was the glamour, I'll be very honest to you. When I joined the airline, the aviation, the glamour was at was at its peak. Out of 1,000 people standing in hot sun for a walk-in interview, only 10 people were handpicked based on how you looked, how you present yourself, and how you talk. Gradually, in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years of flying, I have seen the competition is reduced because a lot of young minds are at work. They are very energetic, very aspiring, very ambitious, and we want people like them. I wouldn't say the glamour is completely died down, but I feel it's taken a backseat. Airlines like Kingfisher and Jet Airways to an extent brought up the glamour to its peak, but now people are there in the market to make money. Airlines like Indigo or GoAir, their strategy is very clear-cut, that we are in the market to make money. The option to take the passengers from destination A to destination B. We don't really want models on board the aircraft. As long as you can take care of the passengers' need, comfort and safety, you'll be able to go. So in terms of glamour, I would not, as I said, I would not say it's completely died down. It's still glamorous because there will be days wherein you're having breakfast probably in Bangkok, and by the time you come to the next flight, you'll probably be having lunch in Singapore. So the glamour is there, but it's taken a back seat, primarily because the airline owners have become more focused towards what the core agenda is to have a cabin crew on board for. Not for a personal, say, a model on board, but primarily to look after the needs of a passenger. So glamour is still there, but taken a back seat.
Just one point to break the glamour bubble with your apologies. Remember, a cabin attendant is for safety primarily. So get over those visions that you have. It's very clear her job is safety first. And that is why, I know that with the Udan scheme or whatever it is, it all looks very nice to see, answering his question on Tier 2, Tier 3 cities. In my aviation career, I have seen this change from the metros to Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. And very nice to see people coming out. And I just give one question to a lot of people, though controversial it may sound. But you see the amount of people from the northeast in the airline. Have you ever wondered why? The Lord, in his own way, gave them Christianity. They knew English. So today, they are sitting in your restaurants, in all the service industry. Tell me, have you seen anybody from Kashmir do this? Controversial.
Can I just say something? How many of you have seen Sully? Have you seen Sully? The movie, you've seen Sully. So it's a great movie to see some of the things that we are discussing here. You must see Sully, and the other book that I want to mention is Simply Fly. It's written by Captain Gopinath. I don't know how many of you have read. How many of you have read Simply Fly? Anyone has read Simply Fly? A book by Captain Gopinath.
Very nice book.
Very nice book. There is a story that he describes there, which is refers to your previous question.
Correct.
Where we at Air Deccan, we were threatened that if we went, there was a certain service provider who was a payment gateway. Low-cost companies, low-cost airlines don't like to do too much to the travel agent. They want to sell directly. So at the time in India, there was only one payment gateway provider for e-commerce companies, and that happened to be with ICICI. And ICICI was a big financer for Jet Airways. So apparently they were threatened that if you gave your payment gateway to Air Deccan, we will pull out the salary account from you. But this is not just this is normal business rivalry. It's it's not right to blame one. It's not as if they were the last people to do it. It's still happening. If you can, there are lobbies in the US. You have lobbying is actually very much legal. You can hire lobbyists in Washington and lobby to keep the policy in your favor. So these are normal business rules. Happens in Hong Kong. There was an airline that wanted to come in, and the regulator said, no, you don't have this in your application. Singapore, same thing. They are considered to be a very open place for doing business. But when their own airline was threatened, they didn't let AirAsia establish a company in Singapore. So I would just like to put this in context here, that this is not just us. Everything is fair in business, in war. This is not just happening here. This is a norm in any place in the world where you are doing business. It's part of being a capitalist, where you want your rival to go down. And sometimes these are fair methods, and sometimes they're a little bit under the carpet.
See, what I want to add about glamour, maybe a different viewpoint. When we say glamour is in whose mind? The prospective candidate. If she thinks that this is a glamorous job, she'll go for it. In that context, you see an airline interview that takes place for cabin 2. I'm sure she'll be able to tell you if she's been there in any of the road shows or something. It's a huge amount. And I was just sharing with her before we met here, that when I was doing CRM classes for cabin 2 also. And if I asked them, on the very first question I always asked, how many of you had a dream to be a cabin crew? 100% wanted to be. And that was true. And even today when I ask, when we go to our office every year, when we go for refresher and all, when I ask this question, 100% answer comes, yes, that was our dream at the age of 18 and 20. So therefore, glamour is in whose mind? The person who is applying for a job. She sees it as glamour, not you and I. We don't matter as far as that goes. So yes, is it a glamorous job? Yes, it is definitely a glamorous job. If you ask the people who want to take up that job, that's where they go. And when it comes to benefits, she can tell you a lot. She's already mentioned a lot in terms of whether it is travel around the world or a 5-star hotel stay, and air conditioning pickup after your just 12 pass, the salaries that you get. And then what is the image that a person has of cabin crew? A very well cultured, well educated, who knows how to conduct herself, carry herself. That is the image people seek to have. So therefore, in my mind, yes, it's still a very glamorous job.
Since we are talking about glamour, I would like to address this question to Captain Chidambaram and get insight from a pilot's perspective. For a non-aviation person, it does look like a glamour to have a job flying at 1,000 feet high and having a nature's view. But as the saying goes, the grass is always green on the other side. But for a pilot, how's the journey going to be like in the initial days, from the time when you get into the cockpit and do your first few takeoffs until the time when you actually land and give a sigh of relief that you have accomplished something. In between the journey, I think you go through a lot of stressful moments, mixed emotions like fear, like fun, like ecstasy. But at the same time, you also have the sense of responsibility that one wrong move or a wrong judgment could jeopardize hundreds of lives. So could you share some of those experiences that pilots would experience in their early days?
Okay, now let me give you the disclaimer first. First is, if you thought you became a pilot and there's no more study, that's the furthest thing. As pilots, you do 2 sets of what, like you use the term called refresher. We go back to ground school. This is the only profession where you go back to ground school twice a year. If I was a normal MBA and going on, I never go back to MBA school. No. So if you ever think you're going to put away your books, sorry, you will continue with your books if you carry on till the age 65. And the amount of add-ons and kind of extra notes that one gets, and as you build, let's just talk of a good professional. Let's just not talk of the run-of-the-mill. As a good professional, you will continue wanting to increase your knowledge. So that thirst of knowledge as a pilot in aviation is something which you need to have. If somebody told you just join aviation for aviation glamour, I think that's very far away from you. And once you kind of, the initial training is fairly grueling. It has its sinusoidal moments where sometimes you feel that you've done okay, you feel you've done well, then suddenly you go down because some things haven't done well. Because when he talks of refresher, remember every 6 months you go back to the simulator, you practice your emergencies, you are assessed for those emergencies. And when I say assessed, if I do not perform, I fail. I fail, my license is not renewed, therefore my pay is stopped. Every 6 months, if I fail my medical, the next day my pay stops. So please understand, this is what I said, let me give you the disclaimers first. So if you're going to get down to it, it is a profession where you need to study and be serious about your job. I'm not saying 100% of the pilots are dull boys. No, there are 50% dull, there are 50% not so dull, let's put it that way. Okay, and I'm of the firm opinion that it's your language and swab that takes you further. Okay, so not the look. So that having been said, you know, so the question is that it is, you know, it's a profession which you need to take seriously, because as you move the ladder, the responsibilities given to you are more. And if you understand your responsibilities, your flight starts the moment that you report to what we call dispatch. That means that is where you go through you're virtually self-briefed, if you understand my term. That means just documents are put in front of you, you are expected to read through them, you are expected to decide a few things depending on you. The advantage on the other side is, yes, you will have your moments, as what Acharya says, you will have your moments of ecstasy, you will have your moments of tension, you will have your moments like suppose you are recovering in Delhi on a foggy day when you can see nothing beyond your nose and you are coming close to the ground. So you are tense, yes you are tense, the automatics are on, yes, but that doesn't sort of you know, keep you away from the job at hand. And ecstasy is, yes, like what she says, when you do a landing in all foggy weather and you touch down and you can just about see just there, just about a few lights. Very interesting. The other part is, yes, the profession takes you through time zones, through fatigue and through rest. If you have not understood the concept of fatigue, rest and time zone, then you know, you are asking for trouble. You are operating in the twilight zone. So that is the important part.
Please feel free. Feel free to express.
Okay, when I entered here, I was greeted by Niti, and she said, "Can I carry your bags?" So when I was in school, we used to be told "Nalayak bacche ka rasta bhari," because he doesn't know what is the curriculum, where it is. That is not the case. I just came from CEFAT, that is my aviation training center, Center of Excellence, and I was conducting classes in the morning, and I came straight from there. Like what he said, your books don't close. They don't close even afterwards. Okay, if you want to really help somebody, that is the first thing. So that is very true. In terms of, if anyone has read a book by Stranger to the Ground, by Richard Bach, and he tell you every pilot is as good as his last landing. That means you got to prove day in, day out, every time. You can't assume and you can't live on past stories. Which means there is only way to do that is preparation. And a person like me always says, flying is done at home, not in the cockpit. Which means you prepare and go to lower way. To answer that special question of, in terms of how tense you feel, once you close the door of the cockpit and get in, actually you forget everything else except how to perform. And that is all that is in front of you. And there is no fear if you are prepared well. Rain, snow, and anything, hell or high water, it just does not matter. Because you just focus, like you only see the eye of the parrot and nothing else. So you see the job at hand, and that's all that you are doing. You have no idea how many passengers are there, what is there. You know that I got to achieve this successfully, and that's all that you are doing. So really speaking, if you are a professional pilot, there is no tension. There is no tension because you want to just achieve, and you are doing it for yourself, for self-pride, and for self-achievement. That is, you want to make sure task that you will give, you perform it to perfection. And that is what a real professional pilot is. That's all.
So, exams every 6 months. How many of you still want to become pilots? Please raise your hand. Okay, fantastic. Great. So apart from flying jobs, Gaurav, would you like to throw some light on what kind of roles maybe ABM or BTA in aviation management would take up in?
Thank you, sir. So, yeah, I think we've talked a lot about so this industry is big. It's not just, of course, should I say, most glamorous part or the most visible part of the industry is pilots and you know, they have a uniform and they travel. There's also the cabin crew, also very visible, interact a lot with the customers. But there are also other parts to this industry which have a lot of potential in terms of generating jobs, and they should be paid serious attention to. Now, some of them in our country, as the industry develops, we have a big demand for people at the airport. So because they are ground jobs, you don't really, they're not that glamorous and they're not heard about, but airports are very profitable companies, and I said this to you, Asha. There are more and more airports being built. Many more private companies are now wanting to become part of the airport, they want to own airport and run them, manage the airports. There's GMR, there's GVK, there is now Adani's. There was a point of time when Tata's wanted to get in. There are also foreign companies. ADP has just come in. There is Changi has invested in India before. Changi is from Singapore. So airports are a big generator of jobs, and the kind of jobs that you have, they are on the ground, they don't fly, but other than that, you still are pretty much part of the industry. So you are at the airport, either you're handling passengers, helping them check in, or you're part of the security infrastructure. The airport checks your bags, or you're part of the cargo, which is again not glamorous, but it's very profitable. So you know, there are a lot of jobs behind the scenes which may have many other good qualities that you probably do not see so explicitly, but they are good jobs. So in airports there are also firefighters, many firefighters, because their shift is only 6 hours. So there are, if it's a 24-hour airport, like Bangalore International Airport is, then you have 4 shifts, and that means that they hire a lot of people, and they go through a specialized screening. From the management point of view, there are jobs not just in airports and operations, but there are also jobs on the commercial side of both airport and airlines. On the commercial side of the airline, you have jobs in managing, this is the business side of the airline. It's different from operation. This is more about trying to see the industry as a business, which means that it concentrates on aspects like pricing. And you might think pricing is, there are usually about 10 fares, so what is so difficult, or why does it require so many people? But pricing in airline business is a science. It requires a lot of detailed attention. There is revenue management, because like you can see today on your phones, you get so many different packages that even the most seasoned person would not know which package to buy. It's really confusing. If you're on a pre-paid, you get sometimes $5.99, $3.99. You don't know which one is the best. That is being deliberately done because it's a way of selling. So pricing is a discipline in airline which requires a lot of detailed attention. It is mastered over many years. It's not a simple thing because there is complexity in how that pricing is put forward. So pricing and revenue management is one very big area where there are many. I'd say an airline, I can give you an example. An airline like Indigo would have more than 100 people in revenue management department managing this on a day-to-day basis, looking at flights and trying to see where they can either put in a higher price, or they can see if they can close it for sale, and or whether they can overbook, things like that. Now this is very layman term I'm putting it, but it's actually quite a complex thing. The other functions on the commercial side, if it is a big airline that goes international, for example in Air India, you will have a person who manages, so it all starts from somebody who manages the routes. You have to decide, Air India would be a wrong example, but somebody has to say, is it going to be profitable if I fly from Bangalore to London? So somebody has to look at all the costs that are involved in such a long route. If it's an 11-hour route, you're overflying so many different countries. Every country charges you an overflying charge. And so therefore, if you're flying, I can give you an example. If you're flying from Johannesburg or from a land base, if you're flying, crossing an entire continent, and you're overflying many countries, you're going to pay a lot more. It's a much more expensive flight than if you were flying over water. So these are charges that a route planner has to take into account. It's a complex calculation because there are many sets of crew involved, there are catering costs, there are many different cost items that have to be taken into account before coming to a conclusion that network planning or route planning is this route is feasible or not. So and then there are subsets. So once you've decided, once the company has decided this is the route that we're going to fly, then of course operational people from flight planning will get involved and see how we will do this. Are we going to be able to, we have mentioned there are 7 sets of pilots for each aircraft. They have to decide which one is going, and there are very detailed rules managing fatigue, how many hours you can, this is all very detailed. So there's a lot of software required for all of this in large companies, and there are now jobs being generated. For you, my message is, there was a time when you could just have a degree and you were set, and most of the training or most of the useful part was taught in the companies. Today, the expectation from the company is, I want to pick up kids, I don't really care whether they're MBAs or BPAs or MSc or BA, what skills do they have? Even when you've done 20 years, they don't really want to know what qualifications that you have. What they want to know is, I want an analyst. Can that analyst prepare information for me the way I want to see it? Can he operate Excel? Is he good in communication? If I'm an international airline, I'm going to be talking to people who speak with a different accent. Is he able to understand them? Is he good in making himself understood? So communication is a big important part. That's a very important skill. Unfortunately, a lot of people are paying a lot more attention to what is written in the book and what the theory is, rather than imparting these practical skills that is what is used in the job. So I would anyway, when we were coming in, computers were not so, they were not everywhere. I started using internet in 1995, and the first time I had a cousin who sent me an email from the US, and I really honestly, on Hotmail, and I really honestly thought she's working for some CI. How is this possible? How can somebody send me a message from, there were no cell phones and there was no internet. So a lot of people who are working in the higher management level of the airlines, they know the business, but they may not necessarily have the time to get into the details of finding all this information, which is what young people are expected to do when they join the company. I would expect somebody to be fantastic on Excel or on PowerPoint, helping me prepare all this information. I should just be able to tell them, please do this, and then or providing insights to me. I looked at all the detailed numbers, and this is what. So this is the entry level jobs that are available. Thousands of such jobs are available. In fact, we don't have enough people, good people who can. Most of the time, they get trained inside once they are already inside the company. So this is on the commercial side, very exciting. Once again, this is something that there's a study done where they say which part of the air. A lot of people think, I want to go and be at the top of the air. I want to be the goal for young people is I want to be a CEO. It's another thing that they will realize later on, but they did a study and they saw a lot of people, a lot of people in the Indian carriers are also from the revenue management background. This is not to say the other parts are not important. It is just to say that it's an exciting field. One should pay attention to it, and this is something that you just need to have skills for, and you should not bother about what is there in your curriculum, but try and see what you can pick up, what will, something that will be useful to you in your jobs. So a very long answer. Somebody else.
You mentioned about the commercial part of the training. So coming to the technical part, maybe Sonal can answer this first before I move to the biotech part. In your role, you have to transcend across cultures, across languages, across demographies. In your training, could you actually be consciously trained to be able to create an excellent corporate customer experience across the cultures? Is it part of your training, or is it something that you pick up along the job?
That's one of my favorite questions. I don't know why, because I have sat through a lot of recruitment drives when I was with Jet, and it's a very funny thing, and I don't know if most people understand that customer service is not a profession. That's my understanding. It's a skill that you acquire. Now, either you're born with a personality where you have customer service centricity in yourself, or you develop with time, either ways. But if you do not have that, then I unfortunately, aviation is not an industry meant when you don't understand, you don't have the customer sense to. Now, Mr. Agarwal spoke about all commercial planning of an airline. Not just that, he spoke about research and development that goes through when we decide a sector, ticketing pricing and everything. There are a lot of other departments also which have really high scope. People who like to teach can get into training. There are a lot of subjects that you can teach, starting from grooming to soft skills to safety to CRM, as Captain Gill was also is still teaching CRM. So these are the centricity, small micro departments which we have in aviation. Any airline that you fly, whether in India or outside India, these are the basic departments that we have. Now, if you look at other airlines outside India, we have many more departments which look after other things. How to be emotionally humane. Now when you fly with a lot of people who are from different nationalities, different backgrounds, where language is a barrier, they train you accordingly, how to comprehend, how to understand, how to make yourself understood with the other person. So it's a very detailed and a lengthy training that you go through, and it is interesting because you explore yourself, you understand, you realize where your weaknesses are, where your strengths lie, and you work accordingly. You work a little more harder towards your weaknesses, and you pay a little less attention towards your strengths because you know that's what you're good at. So yes, the training part itself is a very lengthy and a very detailed process where everything is looked after, from the way you talk, how you present yourself, how to address people, and how to be a little more sensitive towards people. We don't want robots on board the aircraft. If we wanted, we could have just planted a robot on board the aircraft. The reason we have human beings on board is because we want that human touch, we want that human sensitivity. Before a person could just press the call bell, I should probably be a little more proactive to understand that it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon, there is a possibility that he's pressing the call bell for a glass of water and not for a newspaper. So all of these things you need to acquire along with time, and you go through a lengthy training detailed process as well.
Very interesting, and sometimes you may end up with very demanding customers, and you're challenged to keep your calm. And Captain Gill was mentioning about the pilot is only as good as the last landing. So when you talk of training for a pilot post his initial license, what exactly are the skills that you need to keep improving upon to make sure that he stays relevant and efficient, not just in the job market but also in terms of customer service?
Okay. A pilot is not just a pilot who is kind of labor class, who is able to do what an auto rickshaw guy does. That is, here is the clutch, here is the gear, and you move. So clutch in that case, I can say, is the throttle in the aircraft, accelerator, and the gear is, you can say, the stick with which you fly. He's supposed to be a manager. Like the Indian Air Force typically says, I'm an officer first and a professional later. That means you should also know how to conduct yourself. Recently, you must have read in the newspaper, one Indigo pilot has been suspended for 3 months because he threatened the passenger and get you arrested, an old age passenger. And then the daughter and the mother, it is an unacceptable behavior, uncalled for. So therefore, there was another story which came about 4 months back. Normally you see when you go to the aircraft, you see sometimes the pilot is roaming around outside. What he is doing is, he is checking the external condition of the aircraft. That means, is it fit to fly? Every time he is supposed to check. After he did the check, when he was coming up, the passengers sometimes, there is a long queue, somebody is taking time to sit down, put his baggage. So he didn't get his way coming onto the boarding the aircraft. When he didn't get his way boarding the aircraft, he got into argument with passengers. And he deplaned one passenger. Because ego. He didn't give me way. Whereas the simple thing is, the passengers are intelligent people. They know unless you go to the cockpit, flight can't start. If you just wait there, they'll give you way. You don't have to demand. If you just stand there and maybe a smile, and everybody will let you go. But just to make an ego issue of an issue that you didn't give me way, and then you get into argument and you deplane it that you are a passenger who's hostile or passenger who's unworthy of sitting into this area. So in short, you're just not a pilot. You're supposed to be a manager. And the other important trait that a person must have. You see, earlier it used to be called as he is the captain. Today it has changed to commander and command. And why is that is? Because there was a big conflict of what we call empire building. The head cabin crew said this area is mine, and the pilot said this area is mine. They're both in the same aeroplane. Like recently what I read a wonderful story about, one gentleman wrote a story saying that I was traveling and I was busy with my iPad or laptop, whatever he was doing. And then after some time, he said, I looked at the neighboring passenger and I recognized him and I asked him, are you Mr. Narayan Murthy? He said, yes. He said, I thought you would be traveling business class. So he said, why? Do business class reach the destination earlier than others? I will also reach it. Why should I only think of business class? So what am I saying? A person of that stature has this thought. So pilot should not think himself that he is something supreme. He is just doing a customer service. And therefore he has to conduct himself properly. And what is this line saying? That means you should not only feel important for your role, take the responsibility of carrying so many passengers safely from place A to B, where top priority is their comfort and they should be relaxed. So apart from your piloting skill, you got to know how to conduct yourself. You got to be a manager, you got to be a leader, and you got to be ready to take on responsibilities. Remember, a cabin crew, many of them are 18 years old, 19 years old, a young girl. Many people say that's your responsibility when a difficult situation comes. A person like me always say, your problem is my problem. So kindly share with me. One should have that sense of responsibility if you are a real commander. So coming back to what I was saying, that bifurcation was there. That's why it's been renamed as pilot in command or commander. So it's become a legal thing that once that you board the aeroplane, you are the commander of the flight. And what you say goes. But that should not be a sense of, image that I am the boss. Yes, you are the boss. To rectify things, to address others' problems. Take charge of the situation and don't hide behind the door. It's closed and don't open it. And really speaking, one has faced some situation where it was not done. I don't want to take more time. I can tell you stories of it. So I suppose this addresses the
Sure.
Thank you.
Captain, you want to add?
No.
So, any questions from audience? Students, please raise your hand. Any questions? Yes, please.
Sir, if we are able to stop or control the securities or staff of the airport being bribed by hijackers or terrorists, if yes, how can we control it?
So let me just repeat if I understand you correctly. Your question is, how can we stop, bad people bribing the staff of the airport to cause trouble? Okay. Well,
See, in the Indian airports, you've got 6 systems. That means you don't go only through a single system. You start with the gate, and you've got like the 6 systems to reach the aircraft. So therefore, India is by far one of the most checked passengers before you reach. So you can, the only way out is deterrence. a jab is not, because if you start driving all 6 people in the chain, remember word will get out. Because that famous story of, if I tell you a secret, you won't tell that person, say, I don't tell anybody, I told you.
Continuing with what he said, in terms of keeping secrets, he said the only way you can keep a secret is if the other person is dead. Now in hijacker, you are talking about driving. Who all will you drive? You start at the airs, you want to get into the airport, there is a CSS. Then you go into the security, there is another one. Then you go through the final the gate check-in, there is another one. Then there is security at the aircraft. But yet with all this, like what he said, India is the highest number of security checks that you do. Yet are you aware the highest number of hijackings that have taken place is in India?
Yeah.
So the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security once was giving a talk and he was saying, we in India do this, we in India do this. So my one question suddenly flattened them. I said, why 17 hijacks have taken place here, which is the highest in the world? So which means to work ethics and how we conduct, how we really do it. That is the problem of hijacking. But there is an interesting part to it. There is a pilot who is from Ethiopian airline. He was hijacked thrice.
Oh.
Okay. It's a very interesting video. You can go and watch. He was from Ethiopia going to Tanzania. And when somebody who had run away one convict from the jail, he was flying in 777 and he told him, take me to Australia. And he told him, I don't have the fuel to go to Australia because I was just going to Tanzania. Okay. And he said, no, I know. You can go, you're just fooling me. So he kept pestering him and he said, I'll shoot you and I'll do this and all that. So the pilot went a little off the coast of Africa and put it into a slow turn where he couldn't find out that this chap is just orbiting, going round and round over there, giving him an impression I'm going over the sea to Australia. But he was keeping that land in contact, where should he be running out of fuel, he will go and land in Tanzania. Okay. Unfortunately, this guy saw it. So he said, I will shoot you, I will kill you if you don't do it. And he forced him to run out of fuel. And he landed on the beach, and that is where this was his 3rd hijack he was facing. Poor guy. But he survived. Okay. So it all happens. But it's not an easy job. If you are going on a flight, let us say to Srinagar from anywhere, rest assured there will be marshals on board. Okay. So preventive measures are taken, but it's not easy to do it. And if you happen to be hijacking a German or Israeli aircraft, rest assured they'll come after you. They are not going to leave you. Thank you.
Hijacking has gone out of fashion. It was, a preferred way of protesting, or there were a lot of political movements. And one answer that I'd like to give to you, of course, we are wearing different hats. The hat that I'm wearing, the answer is technology. You have today, the Israelis have, they observe people. There's also human behavior that you can monitor. They observe all the people who are boarding. They look at them, profile them. But there's also technology you can use. Today you have face profiling. Technology can be both useful. It can also be used by them, by the evil guys. So it's both ways, but the chances are that authorities are using technology that is ahead and it works. So answer is technology. Your bag goes through a 5-stage check for explosives and stuff like that before it gets into the aircraft.
Anybody else? Yes, please.
My question is to ma'am. When you were there in the industry, what was your management style, or what was your strategy to manage the customers?
There is no particularly strategy that you can, it's not bookish. It's nothing in the book that you can just really understand. It depends from situation to situation, but the most important tactic that you can use in every situation is to stay calm and patient. whether the situation is the customer is angry about something which is not your fault and trying to blame the airline for something, or whether it's something that you're supposed to give it to the passenger but you don't have it as a crew on board the aircraft. Any other situation, whether you have it with the passenger or with the fellow crew or with anyone, the best I wouldn't use the word strategy, rather I would probably just say have this quality of being patient and calm, and you will win all the battles there. This answers your question? Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Great. So this question goes to everyone. How is your experience so far? You have been in various industries, fields of aviation. How was your experience so far till then? What changes have you seen?
Changes in what context?
In aviation, yeah. You work in aviation for 46 years. Yes. 46 years of experience. What changes do you experience?
The changes we have experienced. The very first change that you can say is that when I was in Deccan, I saw there was an old man from Rajasthan wearing a dhoti, wearing that kind of a typical traditional sabar, and with a stick he was walking and going up the ladder. And that is what then Gopinath made it that everyone can fly. So that is the biggest change that has taken place in India. The costs have come down so much compared to what it used to be. It's become affordable for affordable people. Then earlier there was only one airline, and that was the Air India or Indian Airlines, government sponsored. And just to give you an idea again, if it is collapsing, other day I read in the newspaper, 300 crores of bills are still to be paid by some parliament airlines. Okay. So the major change is that so many other airlines privatization has taken place. So many more airlines have come up because the competition has become stiff. So it has become affordable. And these are the major changes in terms of that. One big change is that now you can go to any place, even Timbuktu, by air. Earlier it was not the case. You only went to the metro cities. Today the smallest of place that you can think of. And more is going to come up. Like there are 6 more airports which are being private and public sector. It's going to happen, whether it is Jaipur, and there's a long list of aeroplanes that is coming. So the expansion, the affordability, the size, options. What do you do today? You Google and go on to what is that .com and you look for the lowest cost of the ticket that you get. Earlier there was no such thing. In 2003 also, take it or leave it. Jet Airways ruled the roost. And then there was a Air India, and to some extent even Sahara was there. Not much to choose from. Today you can just go to what is it? Travel.com, my travel something, go there. Make my trip, and you can get it. So I suppose I have my more experience. Rajesh Tamra will tell you about this because he's been longer than me.
The only thing is what I have seen is the elitism of aviation changing to a mode of transportation. I think that is the greatest, as a concept. You moved out of elitism and then you moved into just as a mode of transportation, which has happened in the US long back. In fact, have you people heard of Mr. Rono Datta? He's now the boss of Indigo. No? Okay, educate yourself. Rono Datta ran United Airlines for the US. He gave us a very interesting talk on the development of US airports and the development of infrastructure in the US. And how, like as you see in Bangalore, that's the ideal thing for you. The airport is located north, and then we expected development to move that way. Unfortunately, we have a lot of political situations which don't allow the movement. Otherwise, as a concept, this should have been your second electronic city. And this should have built up the subsequent infrastructure. If you see places like DFW, if you say places like Michigan, Milwaukee, all these places, they will show you how the airports developed. I mean, it's very interesting. Like you talked of Silky Fly. I don't know whether you heard of this book called Nuts. Heard of this book? It's written by Hank Gallagher. It's the story of Southwest Airlines. Very interesting read.
Any other questions we can take?
This happens to be a small Q&A session. Other than these questions are from the students.
Oh, okay.
Okay. This question is for you, ma'am. What is the essence of being a successful cabin crew? And do you have any experiences any comments that the passengers passed on you that you remember that you think has been?
Fortunately, in 14 years of my flight, I've never had a bad experience. I've had passengers coming back. My colleagues to look after their old parents because they could trust me that I could take their old parents from destination A to destination B. I have gone on my parents' 50th wedding anniversary because somebody wanted me on a flight. I have flown on Christmases. I have never celebrated Diwali for years together with my family, and I have done it not because the company wanted me to do it. I did it because that was my passion, and it is still my passion. So don't do it because everybody else is doing it. Do it because you want to do it. You feel you will do the justice. You will be able to justify what you're doing over there, whether you want to be a pilot or a crew or be on ground or join any of the managerial level. At the end of the day, you need to justify yourself when you look at yourself in the mirror. So I would just say that, do it because you have a passion for that, and that has been my passion, and that has what kept me going for 14 years.
What is it, in a student, this generation?
This generation has a lot to offer because you're young, you're creative, you can think out of the box, you can quickly be on your toes to handle a situation as compared to a person who's as old as I am, probably. So I may probably just forget something about it, but young brains will not. So this is what I think out of millennials for sure.
And one more, do you have any special experience of life?
Can I request you to let those who gave you the question ask instead of you continue?
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, please tell them to ask.
Yeah.
When was the concept of silent airport being invented?
Sorry?
Silent airport.
Silent airport.
Why the concept of silent
Let me answer that. So, there is already so much noise on the streets. There is, we love honking, and so silent airport basically no announcements, right? There are so many announcements that it gets. There used to be so many announcements for a flight leaving, was now it's boarding times, stuff like that. It used to be, as Captain Chidambaram said, you are crossing various different time zones. We only think of the Indian market, but if you're traveling long distance, you might be really fatigued, or you might be really tired because you're extreme AM for you at night. It's the concept of silent airport was developed to make sure that the information is provided to the passengers without being, very intrusive on the ear, because you might be sleeping time for you. So many airports follow this. There is clear guidelines. There are where you can see when in order to board the flight. So that's why the silent airports without any announcements. Yeah. More questions? Yes, please.
Why is VT written on windsocket every airport?
VT is basically all countries have a particular designation. Okay, like November, N is for US. Now VT is a very controversial this one here because it hangs back to the British era. Okay, so it goes into it is if I remember, yeah. So it deals with Victoria. Now Victoria is not our problem at all. Unfortunately, we've never taken a country like Bangladesh, Nepal, and Pakistan. They have different annotation. So this annotation was there when the British were there earlier in our country, and it continued. We should have taken the otherwise you will lose your notation after some time. If you see certain countries, because of the amount of countries that you cannot have the alphabets to catch up. So they do have an addition, but that is required. Basically, it gives you the country prefix. You will see a lot of aircraft in Bangalore airport with the November. So that's come from the US. So that's how it is. It's like you put KA so and so on your gadi. See?
So you're asking questions. Maybe I can ask you one. Think of it as a quiz. Many airports, in fact, we have airports being built now, but most airports were built by the British in India during First and the Second World War. Can you name one airport though that was built by the Japanese? Anybody? So it's just for some fun. So let me give you a clue. Where did the Japanese reach? How far did they reach during the war? They were bombing Calcutta, right? They were bombing, I'm giving you clues, maybe wrong clues. But
Very wrong.
Almost. Do you know one airport in India that was built not by the British but by the Japanese?
You've seen that Forgotten Army, this one on Amazon Prime.
Nobody here is a history or war freak. Nobody reads books on history or war or movies. You must be saying that. Okay, even on this now is very interesting. So you give up? Shall I already answer that question? You want to take this? What do you say? No? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes, please, yes. No, unfortunately not.
You succumb to it.
Wrong direction there. So, Mumbai. Well, they didn't reach that far. Otherwise, you would be speaking Japanese. And you would be speaking Japanese. So anyway, the right answer is Port Blair. Port Blair was built. It was taken over. So the right answer is Port Blair, and the reason is that the Japanese, in fact, took over the Andamans. They captured Port Blair. And then in order to defend it, I think they were there for 2 years. In order to defend it, they built the airport there. Anyway, go ahead with the questions. Maybe you want to ask me.
Any other questions? Yeah, yes.
Sir, actually I'm the one who thought to become pilot first, but what made it that much expensive?
Why is it so expensive?
And can I know what procedure?
What's your name?
Girisha.
Girisha. Girisha. Okay, Girisha. So your question is, what process to follow to become a pilot? And you said, why is it so expensive? Anything that when the demand goes up, things start becoming expensive. And that is in 2003 when I took up aviation as a thing. It was so cheap compared to today's context that to get a license, people would end up maybe 15 lakhs. That's all somebody would pay. Today it is at least 40 lakhs minimum. And in terms of what is the process to follow, one simple thing is you have to clear some test papers. You have to do 200 hours in flying that you have to do, which costs so much. And in terms of, if you want to do it in real time, that means you should be first medically fit. Even if you think of becoming one, the first step that you should do is get yourself medically cleared, which is called class 2 medical. You can go to the DGCA website and you can see how to do the medical. What is it? There are lots of people in Bangalore, especially Air Force doctors who are specialists in the Indian Air Force. When they went to do medical tests, they are the best people to go to because they are the experts. There are 4-5 of them out here. You can go to DGCA website and just search for the thing. They are the ones who have been authorized to do the medical. And then you have to pass certain tests. Before you think of flying, you must pass those tests because they are valid for 5 years. Your flying will be valid only for 6 months, otherwise you have to fly away. So don't do that mistake of first going and flying, first clear those tests. And then you have to fly 200 hours. The best place to fly, not here, when you get trained. Go outside, it happens faster, it costs less. Then you come back, convert to Indian license. And if you want any more information, you can visit Center of Excellence for Aviation Training. And that is CEFAT. It's available on Google Center. You can check on that and we'll be glad to help you anything more than you want. Right?
Captain, are there any scholarships that the government will give?
There are scholarships and they are available. The best is to go to, let us say, these NCC units which are there out there. In Bangalore there will be NCC units. They are the people who will tell you, or go to Jaipur Flying Club. They will tell you which are the category of people who are entitled to scholarship, and they will tell you to go to, that means where the secretariat is of the chief minister over there, and they are the ones who give authorization and approval. So best is to go to Jaipur Flying Club. They will tell you who are entitled to receive scholarship, and the government funds it. And yes, I am aware of that. Either the NCC people will guide you correctly, which is the thing, because in the past 1 year, some people did come to me and I did send them to that institute and I learned there are scholarships available. Yeah.
Your phase 2 now, can you choose aviation industry as a future?
Can you just repeat your question?
If you have completed your phase 2 now, in this generation, can you choose aviation industry as a future?
When you said this generation, what did you say?
Yes, plus 2.
Yes, the qualification required is only 10 plus 2 with physics and maths. Okay, that is the criteria. And in case you have not done physics and maths, not an issue. Go to NIOS, National Institute of Open Schooling. They conduct tests every 3 months. You can apply there, which is head office in Dohop. You can Google just National Institute of Open Schooling and you can appear for physics and maths. If you did not take earlier, suppose you were not in that stream, clear those papers and you will qualify for it. Essentially the qualification is 10 plus 2 with physics and maths. That is it. That is it. Yeah. I'm saying their head office is in Dohop. So you can do that.
Briefly summarize and request the panelists to correct me if I am wrong. Aviation space continues to be a very promising career opportunity. It's no different from any other space when it comes to creating a world-class experience, when it comes to good governance, when it comes to turbulences. So maybe we shouldn't get discouraged by those temporary occurrences in terms of career opportunities that the aviation space offers. Yes, there are two things that can be unique when it comes to aviation. One is the management of the time zone and the fatigue, as Captain was mentioning. And two, aviation should be a choice, not because of the glamour, but because of the passion that we have for the space. On this note, I would like to thank all the panelists for spending valuable time on this splendid Saturday and sharing very valuable insights with all the students. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.